Under announcements, it's not listed, but we are going to have two items. One, as I was at City Hall today, and some of you may know that the wooden sculpture has arrived at City Hall, which has a lot of historical perspective. And I've asked David if he would be so kind to give us just a little background to it. It's something of historic to our community, and also David has been very instrumental, and I think very excited and seeing this project all the way through. So I'd like him to give us a little update.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I'd be happy to do that. At property at 324 Florida Avenue, we discovered that within a workshop on that property, there had been a wood carving, a tableau that had been stored in a workshop there for maybe 30 years, exposed to the elements. And as we worked with the property owner to talk about reuse of that site and eventually reuse of that site as a future park site, the city was able to acquire the property and also acquire the wood carving. This wood carving was crafted by a master wood carver of Swiss descent. It was made in about 1915, and it was displayed in San Francisco at the 1939 Golden Gate International Exposition. When we discovered this tableau, it was in poor condition. It had deteriorated quite substantially, but the city was able to acquire it as it acquired the property and was able to work with a restoration firm to stabilize it, do partial restoration, and with the assistance of a variety of individuals, be able to bring this tableau to life, this wood carving to life, and place it at City Hall. So today, after several years of work and many people involved in this effort, many people involved in this effort, the wood tableau is now displayed at City Hall, 567 El Camino Real in our lobby. And it really is a magnificent piece of artwork, and I encourage you all to come and take a look at it. It's now on display there and available for your enjoyment. Thank you.
Dave?
And what we'll do is we'll put out some information about the tableau itself. The name of the tableau is The Independence of Switzerland, and it really represents the founding of Switzerland itself. And we've got a piece here that we'll display at City Hall that tells the history of this piece. Essentially, the tableau shows three representatives of the three areas of what is now Switzerland: Uri, Schwarz, and Unterwalden. And it depicts really the founding of this area of Switzerland in August of 1291. So we've got a full write-up. It'll be with the tableau in City Hall that'll give you some history on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next item we wanted to bring up, there's been some questions. There's obviously been some emails. There has been concerns, comments in regards to, as every community faces, the homeless situation, not only in our community, but neighboring communities. Even some of your council members went up to Sacramento for a conference, and we were engaging other communities to find out what difficulties they're having and what successes they may be having. So I'd ask our city manager and staff if they could bring us a little up to date and some information on that.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm going to ask Police Chief Barberini in just a moment to give some particulars about the situation as we're currently experiencing it in San Bruno and actions that are being taken. The comment that I wanted to make, though, is just to, again, for the City Council and the public's information, highlight the fact that the homeless crisis, if you will, not just in San Bruno, but in many different areas, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, throughout our state and throughout our nation, is a complicated one. It's one that does not have an easy or quick solution, and it's one that requires a comprehensive look and consideration of the various factors that lead to individuals becoming homeless, staying homeless, and that can compromise their ability or access to resources to end their homelessness. This is not a situation that our police department or our city organization can enforce its way out of. It's one, as I said, that requires a comprehensive look, arresting people, forcing people to move on, and a variety of other enforcement types of techniques may be one aspect of the solution, but it is not the comprehensive solution that this community increasingly is looking for us to provide. As such, again, I'm going to ask the chief to make a few remarks in just a moment, but staff is recommending for your consideration tonight that we move forward within the next approximately 60 days to put together a study session conversation in which the city council, the public, and potentially experts in a variety of areas that are relevant to this issue come together to talk about the situation in San Bruno and what, from a comprehensive strategy standpoint, we might better address some of the issues that we're observing and that we're obviously concerned about. So with that, I'd like to ask Chief Barberini to make a few comments.
Chief. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to address this issue. It's an issue that's on the radar not only in our organization, but as mentioned before, our neighboring jurisdictions, and it's a topic of conversation among local police chiefs on a regular basis. I'd like to thank the city manager for pointing out that although law enforcement interacts with homeless individuals on a regular basis, pretty much because of the nature of what we're asked to do, if we look at this from a law enforcement perspective, we've learned both at the state level and nationally that we're going to experience limited to no success. It's not something that can be looked at as a criminal justice issue or something that can be enforced or solved with a pair of handcuffs or taking somebody to jail. As mentioned earlier, the enforcement component is something that we try to avoid talking about because it just doesn't happen. There are no statutes to effectively enforce to help eliminate homeless. As this council knows, the city and the police department have partnered with an organization called Life Moves that has an agreement both with the county and specific agreements with individual cities, of which San Bruno is one, to actually put homeless outreach workers in the field. We've been working with Life Moves for about 18 months. We've recently upgraded that relationship or enhanced that relationship. For the first year and a half, we had access to an outreach worker that was basically a responder. When we received complaints or we received issues, we would contact this individual and ask this individual to go to a specific location, contact certain individuals and offer them services and persuade them to accept those services. While that was great and it gave officers a resource rather than to just kind of throw their hands up when folks would not be receptive to help, it was a reactive effort that experienced some success but limited success. So what we've done is we've tried to take a more proactive stance with Life Moves. They've added an additional staff member, and instead of simply responding to complaints, we now have, or they now have, more of a capacity to be proactive and actually seek out individuals who are living on the street and offer them services and develop relationships to hopefully convince them to accept those services. That enhancement is taken place over the last 60 days. So for the last 2 months, we've had an additional outreach worker responsible for the city of San Bruno, and she proactively goes out looking to interact with homeless individuals, offering them services, trying to convince them to help their situation. We oftentimes go out with that person because we have a good relationship and we interact with these people on a regular basis and oftentimes know them by name. We try to work together. It's important to remember, though, when either a police officer or a Life Moves homeless outreach worker is called or responds to a specific situation, it's not going to be a quick fix. If we're called or we call an outreach worker to go interact with a homeless individual, it does not mean that situation is going to be rectified right away. We very rarely run into any legal authority that allows us to simply remove somebody from a public street. The law simply doesn't allow that. And more often than not, it takes time for the outreach worker to develop relationships with these individuals, to develop some sense of trust before they're willing to explore accepting services. We do arrest homeless individuals. I don't want to say that we don't have regular interaction. We do. They're out there. They're in the public. We probably have more of an interaction with them than other people just because of their lifestyle. Most of these arrests include very minor level theft-related arrests, alcohol and drug-related arrests where they're issued a citation. Typically, these folks will not go to their court date. It'll result in a warrant for their arrest. We'll eventually arrest them, take them to jail, where they'll spend just a few days in jail, and they'll be right back where they began. We also often evaluate them for a mental health condition to make sure it's safe for them to be doing whatever they're doing or living wherever they're living. And that standard is whether or not they can care for themselves. Being homeless does not mean you can't care for oneself. That's been legally decided, and it's a clear point. But the police officers do have the authority when individuals display some type of mental health issue that compromises their own safety or the safety of others to forcibly take them to a treatment center. And we do that frequently. That center is authorized to hold and evaluate an individual for up to 72 hours. Oftentimes we'll see that individual is back on the street within 6 to 8 hours. There is, as I mentioned before, there's no example of a successful enforcement or law enforcement approach to that. The police department shares the frustration of the homeless issue, and we want to be part of the solution. However, we're not the primary piece to the final puzzle as part of that solution. We are an active participant. We want to be part of the answer, but we think that there's a bigger issue, and responding to homelessness is not the answer. Asking questions of why homeless individuals gravitate to a certain area or decide to congregate or frequent certain areas, we think is a bigger and more important question. And we think seeking to prevent homelessness would be much more effective than trying to react to it. And we'd love to be part of that process, and we're happy to do whatever we can to be part of that. But it's important to ask that question of why we're experiencing these types of problems. We do it with other issues in law enforcement. If we have a burglary problem or we have a robbery issue or there's something going on, not only do we react to it, but we try to figure out, hey, why is this happening and what can we do to prevent it? To this point, we haven't taken that step with this issue, not just in San Bruno, universally. And from a law enforcement perspective, unfortunately, that far exceeds what we do, and it requires some collaboration and the involvement of a lot more stakeholders. I will, in closing, I don't mean to take up too much of the time. There are examples. There'll be questions about enforcement. There are examples of neighboring jurisdictions or local jurisdictions that have created downtown units and put officers in the downtown area, and it's been effective. In speaking with those police chiefs who've employed that tactic and have the luxury of having those resources, they're displacing their homeless people. Their homeless problem is not going away. It does make downtown merchants happy because the frequency of the interaction with law enforcement has persuaded some of these individuals to go elsewhere within these cities. But it doesn't mean that the problem is going away. It just means that we're pushing it to another portion of the city. Not to say that's the wrong answer. I'm just full disclosure. There are 3 or 4 cities that have taken that approach, and that's the feedback we've received from those entities. So that's all I really have. That's kind of our philosophy and where we're at and what we're dealing with. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anything? Chief, thank you for your comment. And City Manager, you'd said about 60 days.
Yes, we'd like some time to put together a thoughtful presentation that you could really take some time to engage with discussion at the City Council level with some resources to prompt your discussion.
Thank you. One final announcement, just as a reminder from our last meeting, if you have an item that you want to speak on the agenda, we have speaker cards over by Vicki that are available, and if you'd fill that out, that'd be greatly appreciated. She'll call you up. And yes, Mr. Seymour.
Could I just make a comment over there?
Absolutely.
Mayor Medina, I just want to thank you very much for bringing this discussion and this issue to City Council. I think it came because of some emails I was sending, and I'm sure some others were sending those emails as well. I'd like, when this is put together, it would be great if members of the public, residents, could be part of this group that looks at ways to address this issue. That's all I'm asking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just take that in consideration.
Being a stakeholder.
What's that?
Being a stakeholder.
Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Marina, did you have something regarding the homeless? Okay.
Good evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this issue. Thank you so much to the chief. I want to talk about this particular homeless person that is between the flower shop and in a restaurant. This person, I believe, needs help but rejects the help. However, if 5150 will be a solution to take him, it's cold up there. We went to the restaurant and it didn't smell good, so we had to leave. Is there any way that he can be basically 5150 so service can be provided to this gentleman, because most definitely he needs help. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, again, yes, Jamie? Absolutely. Regarding the homeless item, yes.
I'll be very
Discussion.
brief.
Thank you.
I just want to mention in the 6 years that I've been on San Mateo Avenue, just in the last year, I've seen an enormous decrease in the homeless issues that we've had on San Mateo Avenue. And I want to thank the chief and city manager and city council for implementing these improvement plans that you have so far. It's helping a lot.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay, again, speaker cards. I also wanted to acknowledge before us that we have a bouquet of flowers that we usually do. This one is from City Hall, and this is and a card is on it to acknowledge our city clerk, who we lost on Monday morning, and it's from the staff, her colleagues, and of course the officials here. So I want to acknowledge that this evening. I also want to thank first and foremost Vicki. It was very shocking for her to hear the news on Monday morning. I was at City Hall, and one of the first things she said is, "I will be there Tuesday night." So thank you.